afternoon. My name is Dawn Weitzel. This is Mitch Frank and Ashley Reed, and today we're going to be talking to you about employee retention. And we'd like to please ask you to hold any questions you have until the end of our presentation. I'd like to start out our presentation today with a quotation for you. It explains employee retention kind of in a nutshell. It reads, "Today's psychological contract in which workers feel responsibility for their own careers rather than loyalty to a particular employer makes voluntary turnover more likely." And this leads to employee retention becoming recently more and more of a focus to HR departments across industries and countries. People are realizing that employee retention is a costly problem, and this is leading them and forcing them to develop a plan to fight increasing turnover rates.
Okay, I would like to start off by discussing why employee retention is such a costly problem. Employee retention strategies go a long way in motivating the employees so that they stick to the organization for a long period of time and contribute effectively. Employee retention has developed into a big concern for organizations because employees have begun to move to other organizations for better salary, benefits, atmosphere, and growth prospects. When a gifted employee wants to leave the company, it's the responsibility of management and HR to find out exactly why the employee wants to leave. We came across an article online that was called "Employee Retention: What Employee Turnover Really Costs Your Company." That was written by Ross Blake, and we found that employee turnover is one of the largest costs in all types of companies. However, it's also one of the most unknown. Companies regularly record and report company costs such as benefits and wages, workman's comp, materials and utilities, and etc. However, most companies have no reports of the employee turnover, and this can be much higher than most people think. So how much is employee turnover costing companies? Several studies done by Blake in recent times estimated that the cost of losing an employee, and statistics done by the Society for Human Resource Management estimated that it costs about $3,500 to replace just an $8 an hour employee when all costs such as interviewing and training and hiring were put into place. It costs you 30 to 50% of the annual salary of entry-level employees, 150% of middle-level employees, and up to 400% for specialized high-level employees. So if you think of a job in your organization where there's some turnover, for example, like supervisors, you estimate their annual average pay and the number of supervisors you lose annually. So say their average pay is $40,000, you multiply this by 0.125 or 125% of their annual pay. So this means it costs just $50,000 to replace one supervisor. So imagine you lose 5 in 1 year, that's $250,000. Actual turnover costs are much more advanced than we think they are until we actually evaluate them. Some would say that some employee turnover is unavoidable and even desirable, which is correct. Occasionally, turnover is necessary to replace poor employees to bring in fresh ones with bright ideas. However, high turnover costs are both preventable and unnecessary. But why don't companies see this as such a costly problem? Another survey conducted by Blake found that only 44% of its respondents had a process in place to estimate turnover costs. 43% of companies relied on intuition, and 13% had no process at all. And that some costs were not even reported to upper management. We thought that there should be an agreement ahead of time between HR, operations, and finance as to what costs will be measured and reflected as valid. Then it must be measured and reported, because waiting until something happens before taking any actions limits a company's success rate, and it also triggers the common response of offering more money before actually trying to fix the original problem. Obviously, hiring is not an easy process. Recruiting the best employees is a time-consuming process, and a company also places a lot of time and money in preparing an employee for work and helping them understand the company culture. A new employee is one that the company needs to work hard to train for an overall development, and every new employee needs time to adjust to their new surroundings, and it's also a task for current employees to adjust to the new employees. So companies just need to give time for adjustment. Why do employees quit? In exit interviews, one of the most common reasons given for leaving is the availability of higher paying jobs. Some minimum wage workers left their current job just to go to another job that only pays 50 cents more. Some jobs are also more attractive than others, and another reason why employees leave is unrealistic expectations. When unrealistic expectations are realized, the employers may decide to quit. And lastly, an employee may also leave a job due to the person themselves, and this includes both personal and trait-based factors. Personal factors include things such as changes in a family situation or the desire to learn a new skill or trade. I'm now going to hand it off to Dawn, who's going to discuss current practices.
All right. I'm going to discuss with you what our group has found that companies are currently doing to help combat turnover and increase their employee retention. I'm going to talk about three main things that we discovered that are the most popular things people are doing. The first thing I'm going to discuss with you is employer branding. The second thing I'm going to discuss is how to manage a multi-generational workforce. And the third thing I'm going to discuss is implementing successful onboarding programs in your company. So, employer branding. How can your company gain a competitive advantage? By creating an employer brand, your company is creating a competitive advantage because an employer brand defines a company's strengths relating to policies, procedures, and culture. It creates a loyalty among the employees, aids in retention management, and generates an improvement in candidate attraction, engagement, commitment, and motivation. So basically, this means that an employer brand can create a culture for your environment at your company. It attracts new employees to want to come and work for your company, and it helps current employees gain more of a loyalty towards your company because they understand exactly what it stands for. So how can your company develop an employer brand? You can follow these 4 easy steps. Step 1 is the concept phase, deciding what you want your employee culture to represent. Step 2 would be the design phase, actually designing what your employer brand is going to be and carrying it out. Step 3, an integration phase, integrating it into your company and getting your current employees interested, and also expanding it so that future employees understand and appreciate your company culture as well. And step 4, the evaluation phase, which allows you to take measurements and decide if your company culture has been a success, a positive improvement in your company. And you can read more in full detail about these steps in the Journal of Marketing and Communication. Having happy employees is basically the ultimate goal of creating this employer brand. Creating a company culture or brand should help your employees be more happy, and the more involved your employees feel, the happier they are at work. And this is an example of a company which is a professional certification or seal of approval called Choose People that can partner with your company to help you improve your company culture, increase employee happiness, and eventually boost your bottom line. You can learn more about this group called Choose People at their website, choosepeople.com. They're a great role model for your company, and they will help you to increase employee happiness and their overall job satisfaction, and that's all they're committed to. And so this is a great ally for your company if you're working towards creating a better company culture and happier employees. The next thing I'd like to discuss with you is managing a multi-generational workforce. Never before has there been so many different generations in the workforce, and many people see this as a problem, but with employee retention you can actually use it to your benefit and utilize it as a tool. For instance, the first thing you can do is find out what's most important to each of the generations that are within your company. For example, here I have the Generation Y employees, and 3 things that are most important to them are ample personal time, their company's commitment to global responsibility, and a reduction of stress in the workplace. And if you know what the main things that are important to each of these groups, you can increase employee retention in each of the generations as well as across your entire company as a whole. You can also use these differences to benefit your company in the example of the baby boomers who are experienced, they have tacit knowledge, they know the business, and even though they're not going to be in the workforce for much longer, you can use this generation to your benefit because they will pass on their KSAs to the younger generations. They also help with employee retention because the younger generations see the way they work in the company and how they feel towards the company, and they can help increase employee loyalty if you appreciate them and treat them fairly. And the next thing I would like to talk about is an onboarding program. Many companies have them, however they don't use them successfully and to their full advantage. The big point is that effective communication and planning will lead to an increase in productivity and your bottom line. A successful onboarding program develops clear communication from the start before the new employee's first day. It also focuses on the first day, scheduling time for the new employee to meet everybody so that they feel welcome in their new work environment, and presenting their expectations to them prior to their first day, as well as within their first couple of weeks on the job. Because people who don't know what's expected of them don't understand their roles as an employee, and it can eventually end up costing your company money down the road and can lead to a decrease in employee retention if your new employees aren't feeling comfortable at work and they're not sure how they're doing. The next thing on here is establishing a mentoring or a buddy system, which is also a good ally for a new employee who's getting acquainted with a new company. And lastly, measuring their results or behaviors and providing them with feedback so that they can measure their capabilities and they know where they are in the company and they know if they need to improve or if they're being successful. I have an example here of a success story after implementing a mentoring program that was at the company Hunter Douglas, and their turnover rate is now averaging 15% for new hires on the job for 3 months or less. This figure is well below the national average of 34.7%. So this is a great example of success, that not only implementing a successful onboarding program, but just a mentoring program in itself can do wonders for your company and increase your employee retention fairly dramatically. The next thing I'd like to discuss is feedback. Conducting regular meetings between HR professionals and employees allows a company to be preventative towards negative trends in the workplace and will eventually reduce voluntary turnover. If you don't know what's going on with your employees and you don't have open communication with them, it's hard to know how they're feeling about the workplace and if they think that they're being successful. This allows for them to create a foundation for the rest of their time in your company, and it's good to develop a strong open communication and a strong relationship with them from the get-go so that you don't lose them within those first couple of months, which was when a lot of employees decide to leave a company because they're just not adjusting well. And they want to feel important, and by giving them feedback and keeping the lines of communication open, you make the employee feel important. The last thing I'd like to discuss is an unfortunate occurrence when people do decide to leave your company. However, you can take advantage of this and use it as a learning tool and use it as a tool for employee retention by using exit interviews and finding out the employees that are leaving your company, why are they leaving? What led them to leave? Was there not enough open communication? Did an HR professional not get a chance to sit down with them and discuss any problems they were having? And so an exit interview will really help you figure out how to increase your employee retention by asking the employees themselves. And now Mitch is going to talk about the impacts on society.
Retention programs have increased in importance as communities recognize that real job growth over time comes from local business expansion. Business retention programs are concerned with relationship building, so they should have an important influence on how businesses view their community and activities of the local government. The degree to which business retention programs are linked to other community programs, such as loan funds or workforce training initiatives, can have a significant impact on programs' effectiveness. Once you have identified and studied your business community and the resources available, determine the primary strengths and weaknesses of your service area. This would include key business issues that would concern the surrounding communities, the availability of certain services, as well as infrastructure availability and retractions. An employer knowing what is available in the community is crucial in determining what they can offer their employees. A company is active in the community shows that they care and are willing to go the extra mile for the people who they employ, but also for the people of the community. After a business takes the time to learn about the various resources that their community has to offer, their retention programs will begin to grow and gain power by properly referring those public and private resources. An organized business retention program is vital in maintaining a healthy economic climate. According to Maples, 3 characteristics that any such program should contain the following. Make the program accountable. Set up a reporting structure that can record visits, referrals, problems, and successes. And then publicize those results to the media, to your business community, and make them proud of where they have chosen to operate. Relationships, relationships, relationships. They cannot be stressed enough. Create them, cultivate them, manage them, and strengthen them. They are the life or the death of your retention program. Care about the community and care about those businesses within your community. Be sincere when visiting them with them and about providing the assistance that they need. Share in their experiences, and they will know that you truly are committed to them and the community as a whole. That will speak louder than anything else that you could possibly accomplish. Employee retention can affect certain aspects of an employee's life outside the office just as much as inside. In many instances, employee retention starts off immediately when a person is hired. If a company sees a significant amount of potential, they will reward the employee right away with certain benefits. Such benefits include paying off student loans or other debts interest-free. The employer can do several things, including staggering payments or making the loan contingent on certain performance goals. Another way that retention programs help retain employees is through programs with competitive salaries and bonuses. This is a way that employers can show loyalty to the employee, hoping in return that the employee will show loyalty back. Increased benefits, stock options, more vacation time, company cars, child care are all examples of certain benefits that employees can receive. Another way of implementing employee retention that would have a substantial effect on the employee's life outside of the office would be a company implementing policy that would allow flex and part-time scheduling. By doing this, the company would be able to retain an employee who would need a flexible schedule due to personal reasons. By doing this, the company could create a family-friendly reputation, thus making the company much more attractive to future employees. The necessary retention development plan is going to benefit the employer in 2 ways. The first is money. By increasing the amount of time you can capitalize on your investment in an employee. When an employee is hired, the employer is making an investment by putting money into recruiting, hiring, and training. The investment will only show a return as long as the employee continues to work for that company. Production is the second aspect of a strategic retention plan. It is well known that people thrive on motivation, and when properly encouraged, attitudes will improve and productivity will improve at the same rate. Certain restrictions and legal agreements are enforced to employees when they decide to work for certain companies. An enforceable non-compete agreement can often be utilized as a useful form of retention, as it decreases the chances of finding employment with another competitor. An employee who faces legal trouble by taking a job with other companies will force the employee to think twice about changing companies. A similar effect can be achieved in appropriate industries by entering into an agreement with an employee, where the employee agrees that if he or she wants to continue doing business with specific customers after separating from the company, the employee will pay a fee to the company. This customer-specific penalty prevents any side deals from getting done or an employee going off on his own. The employer must be aware of harsh tax rules associated with excess amount of benefits. If an employer gives an excess amount of benefits, disciplinary actions resulting in reduced compensation deduction to the employer and a 20% penalty on a portion of the payment imposed on the employee.
Okay, I would like to wrap up our presentation by discussing some of our conclusions. The research and evidence suggests and proves that employee retention has been, it is, and always will be a problem for HR professionals and managers to address. However, today it's becoming more difficult and costly to retain your best employees than it was yesterday. Large turnover rates are costing businesses an enormous amount of money that could and should be freed up for bigger and better and more beneficial company investments. We had an email interview with Tori Doherty from Cunningham and Butler. She's an HR representative, and we found that she felt very similar to how we felt. We asked her if she saw employee retention as a problem, and if so, why? And her response was that Cunningham and Butler has below standard turnover rates. However, low employee retention in general is a problem, considering that the cost of replacing employees can be extremely high. The cost and time to recruit, interview, hire, and train, and etc. is intensive, and low retention may also have a significant impact on the morale of a company. We also asked what their company is currently doing to decrease employee turnover, and she replied that Cunningham and Butler provides a lifelong learning and training opportunities, work-life balance, such as flexible schedules and hours for many employees, a full benefits package, open communication, and ongoing and constructive feedback on performance. We found our interview with her to be very helpful because lately employee retention has gained more and more attention of successful businesses in the United States. So overall, we developed that employee retention, or lack thereof, affects businesses, the communities in which the businesses are home to, their employees' households and home life, and the economy altogether. Does anyone have any questions?